perspective? Well, I think these verses clarify that he finally reached a point in which he acknowledged Jehovah alone.
Yes.
I think he had finally gotten pushed into a corner by God, where God wanted him, for God's purposes, to at least take us to the point where he recognized that God was divine, recognized that Jehovah alone had all power and glory and honor, and he essentially finishes his life as a monotheist. I don't know any more than that, but I think that's a fair assumption. He acknowledged Jehovah alone. I think these verses we just read, 34 and 35, make that pretty clear. What was his perspective of power? His new perspective of power? Well, now he recognized and saw power as a gift from God.
Yes.
Power is bestowed from God on whom he chooses. He saw it as a gift from God. And what does this mean for us? All this interesting story now, what can we learn? What can we learn? Well, there's a few things that I think can be applied on a large scale, the macro scale, to nations, but there's some personal application as well. So let's consider what we can learn. Number one, God is in control of the rulers of nations. God is in control of the rulers of the nations. It tells us in Scripture that the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. That appears in the Bible, doesn't it? God is control of the rulers of nations. Now that ought to give you a little comfort. I think it should give you comfort. It seems like a comforting thought to know that all these men, whatever measure of free will God gives to them, are on a leash. They can only go so far before God says, that's enough. No further. They're not a wild dog running wherever they wish. They're on a strong and powerful leash, and they're allowed to go here, or they're allowed to go there, perhaps. God has the final control. And that gives me some comfort to know just how powerful God is, and just how much he understands the affairs of men. Second, the chief sin among created beings is illustrated quite well in this chapter. In fact, we've seen it in the life of Nebuchadnezzar. The chief sin among created beings is pride. Pride. You don't have to be a great emperor of an empire to have a problem with pride. Virtually every one of us has a problem with pride. Even those who seem pretty meek and humble, you get them in the right situation, and they're just going to become all stubborn as all get out. Because you found that one little spot of pride. And it might be over something small, in which you had a long-running argument, and you finally have shown them beyond the shadow of doubt that they're wrong and you're right. But they wouldn't. Amen. And they know that you're right, but they're just not going to give you credit for being right. Well, that's pride, of course, isn't it? Every one of us struggles with pride. It's the chief sin of all history. The first sin. And from it flows a lot of other things. Out of that flows so many things. So we have to be on guard with pride, because God sees it. He understands it. He knows it. And it can get out of control. Point C, the greatest among us are nothing compared to Jehovah. We are like nothing. Finally, Nebuchadnezzar perceives this. And it tells us in this chapter that we are as nothing. Verse 35, all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing compared to Jehovah. We are low, low, low. Next, there is a real important lesson for us here on the point D. A warning of coming judgment and the actual arrival of that judgment are often separated by a significant period of time. In this particular story, it tells us that it was 12 months. One calendar year elapsed between the time that Daniel told him what was going to happen and the moment in time in which it occurred. We don't know Nebuchadnezzar's frame of mind during that 12 months, with the exception to say that he didn't pay any attention to Daniel's exhortation, did he? Maybe he thought about it for a while, but if he did, it didn't last. Because God caught him exactly a year later, at the end of 12 months, and he caught him at a moment of pride. It was when he was uttering words of pride. After being warned 1 year previously, just when he was uttering these great words of pride, admiring his own power and kingdom, that the voice from heaven fell and said to Nebuchadnezzar, "Unto you had your chance." And the boom was lowered. And in 1 hour, it was fulfilled. Wow. Now that's an important lesson for us. It's important for us to understand that there is a time lag between judgment being declared and judgment being delivered. Now I believe this is also useful when it comes to natural judgments. Now, this is sort of a providentially imposed judgment on the grand scale. But there are many natural judgments in our lives in which we can give ourselves the illusion that we are not subject to the things we think we are, that everybody says we should be. So, for example, just a general illustration, suppose you unwisely go deep into debt, and you kind of know you shouldn't. Maybe someone who knows you even cautions you a little bit. You're kind of running up the credit card bill a bit high, or you're living beyond your means. That's the time in which, we know better. But that's not necessarily the moment in time when we will feel the pain, is it? True. There's often, you may go many, many months, years even, before finally the boom is lowered. And you suffer the natural judgment of your poor decision. Amen. Happens in our lives all the time. Frequently, this happens. Why is there a time lag? Well, it's just part of the natural affairs of men that this time lag is in between there. And of course, it's also God's hoping this we'll repent and we'll change our ways, whether we're changing just a bad habit like overspending or something that is truly a grave sin. There's a time lag in between. So, you could be suppose you're a very poor husband, and people around you say, you think you can do better as a husband. Well, I'm doing fine. Then, whammo, your wife ups and runs away. She can't take it anymore. Files divorce. Well, it didn't come out of the blue. Where did that come from, you say? She just freaked out one day. Did she really freak out one day? Or were you warned of your deficiencies? Or it could be the other way around. I'm not picking on men. Maybe I should pick on men. It could be the other way around. Wives, you don't live the way you want. You don't yield to your husband. You're living a life of rebellion against your own husband. Does it happen? And you don't understand when your husband reacts. Well, why did he do that? What'd you do? He just went crazy one day. This is a very important lesson. I encourage all of you to focus on point D. A warning of coming judgment and the actual arrival of that judgment are often separated by a significant period of time. Whether we're dealing with dramatic, divinely imposed judgments, as in the case of this story, or the little things of life, just the natural judgments as they work out in life, just the natural affairs of the world. And of course, that takes us to point E. The time lag is designed to allow repentance, to give us an opportunity to learn, to think and reflect and say, yeah, I could change a little bit. I could do something different. I can do something. I can do different. I can be better. I can heed the warning. Or you can be like Nebuchadnezzar and then brush off the warning, and then boom, something dramatic happens, and in 1 hour your life is turned upside down, and you look, I just don't understand how that could be. Now look, God, as we conclude here the last couple of points, God has a reluctance to impose judgment. He really does. God really, the mercifulness of God is great. It is great. God has a great reluctance to impose judgment. Yet, his sense of justice does demand it. And we don't want to trample on his sense of judgment, God's sense of justice, and God's sense of honor, and presume too far upon that. Presume too much on God's sense of honor and justice, and assume that God's mercy is the only quality that he possesses. So you could argue his mercy is infinite, but so is his justice infinite.
Yeah, amen.
God's sense of holiness is infinite.
Amen.
And finally, a real practical point. And I personally think this last point is a point of something that can encourage us. I've written down there, God's people can prosper under the authority of base men. Base men. The word base appears in verse 17, basest. A great lesson. One of the great lessons of this chapter is to understand the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basest of men. Now, the word base means low.
Yes.
It doesn't mean low as in stupid. It doesn't mean low as in poor. It doesn't mean low as in badly dressed. It means, essentially, and I've written, this is just my interpretation, these are spiritual zeros. The basest of men are spiritual zeros. They're not spiritual men. They're like Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar had enormous talent, but for most of his life anyway, he was a spiritual zero.
Yeah.
Yet, under a spiritual zero, God's people can prosper. Now let's look at that in a couple different ways real quick before we close. Let's take it on the macro. God's people in this land, God's Israelite people in the United States of America, can prosper under rulers who are evil, who are spiritual zeros, who have nothing to commend them before God.
Amen.
So take comfort in that thought. That if politics on the large scale goes against us, don't panic.
Amen.
Don't think that the sky is falling in our little world here in the Midwest.
Amen.
Because it may not be at all. It wasn't in the days of Daniel. God was watching over his people.
Praise God.
And he used this spiritual zero to actually protect them. But as we get a little more personal, it's more than just on the macro scale. This can be true in a business. You may have a boss who is a zero spiritually. You can prosper under that employer. You can prosper in an environment in which your leader may be very poor. But let's get really personal. What about your own household? What about in your own household? Is it possible to prosper when the household is led by a spiritual zero? I think so. Now, I'm not here to say that it wouldn't be better if you had a great spiritual leader. But the answer, when you have a leader who's a spiritual zero, is not try to get rid of him. The answer is to lean upon God more. Let your faith in God grow greater. Greater. Let your faith in God be enhanced. If there is a spiritual zero that is somehow your authority. And that's not easy to do. And the closer to home it is, the harder it is. It's not impossible. God can prosper you wherever you're at. And God can change the heart of anyone. If God can change the heart of the ruler of the planet, I believe he can change the heart of someone in your own household that has great shortcomings. But you have to be faithful. And you have to be patient. And you have to lean upon God for all your worth. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention this morning.
Amen.
I trust this chapter has been help and value to you. May God be praised, and shall we stand?